Japanese fried rice is going to be to cook the rice. I use a rice cooker. It comes out perfect every time. You can use just the standard pot on the stovetop, but if you want perfect rice every time, get a rice cooker. And we have some options in the different types of rice. For Japanese style rice, you want short grain or medium grain. Sushi rice is a short, it's a real short grain, whereas the medium grain, it'll work. It's very close to the short grain sushi rice, but sushi rice has much more stickiness to it because it has more starch in it. But either one, because these are Japanese rices, you need to wash them more than you would, for instance, on a long grain rice. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and use this sushi rice, which is, for me, it's going to come out better. And in my rice cooker, for this dish, I want to use 3 cups. When I say cups, I mean the actual measuring cup that comes with the sushi rice, or the rice cooker. So I'll get 3 of those. 1, 2, 3. It's going everywhere. I like this bag because it's resealable. Now we have to wash the rice. So what we're going to do, I'm going to turn on the hot water. And we want this to get fairly warm. Now, if your hot water is really hot, then you want to cut it back a little bit. Mine is not, my hot water is set to where you can still touch it, but without getting burnt. But you don't want to cook the rice, so you want to get hot water. And this is going to be for the first few washes. And the reason we're doing this is to get some of that starch off of there. And you always need, maybe, most other types of rices, other than Japanese rice, you don't need to wash. The Japanese rice has a lot of starch, and so we want to get rid of some of it, not all of it. So that's twice in the hot water, or 1 more time in hot water. I can hear my dad in my ear. He would tell me that the only way to really wash rice is to get your hands in there and wash it with your hands. But I never really felt that way. So now I've switched it over to cold, and I'll do this a few more times in cold. And then the last time I add water is I want to get the water level up to 3, which is the amount of water that I need for 3 cups of rice. Now, I don't know if you can see it. I'll try. But along this edge here, there's, it's even hard to see without the camera, but there's numbers, and I'm going to measure that up to number 3. When I have the right amount of water, and then I'll go ahead and put it back into the rice cooker. So now I have 3 cups of washed rice. I'm going to put that inside of the rice cooker, close the top, and in this case I'll hit white rice, and pretty much it does everything on its own. When it's done, it'll come on and say keep warm. And then what I do want to do is get in there with a rice paddle. Let me see if I can find a rice paddle. Here you go. This is a rice paddle. And I'll get in there and just stir it up a little bit. You never want to use metal inside of your rice cooker. It'll scratch the edges. So we'll stir it up once or twice just as it's cooling in the keep warm state. The next step is to, I've already washed this green onions, scallions, whichever you want to call them. But after you've washed them, of course, we want to cut these root ends off. And we'll get rid of those. And if we can do this all at one time, if we bunch them up, get this end square, I can cut these as thin as possible. And this is going to get added to our rice, our fried rice, our Japanese fried rice, very specific. It's not Chinese, it's not Thai. This is a very specific style of making fried rice in the Japanese style. It's much more moist, it's more sticky, and in my opinion, it's the best way. If you go to a Chinese restaurant, in the most of them, of course they'd have Chinese style rice, and to me it's very dry. And when you go to try to even pick it up with chopsticks, you can't because it just falls apart. But in a Japanese style, it's sticky and it sticks together, much easier to eat with chopsticks. Now, yes, we also were going to cut up the greens. I don't know, call them the greens section of these scallions. And some of it we'll put into and cook with the fried rice. But we'll save a little bit of it just to put as a garnish. It's a nice bright colored green and looks very nice as a garnish. Plus it tastes pretty good. That looks like enough. So let me get something to save off those little greens so that we can use them. So I'll take some of these at the very end, and we're going to use that as a garnish on top of our finished fried rice. Our next step is to fry the mushrooms. So I'm going to put this on medium high. I want to cook these pretty hot, medium high. And we need to put some oil. I prefer peanut oil for this. Just enough to cover the bottom. You don't want to put too much, or you don't want to put too little, but somewhere in the, just to cover the bottom. We'll wait for that to come to heat. Once our frying pan gets hot enough, we can see the oil shimmering. We can go ahead and put our mushrooms in and fry them. So one of the mistakes I see a lot of people make is they just add the mushrooms right to the fried rice. And the reason that's a mistake is because mushrooms have a lot of moisture in them. I don't know what percentage of water they are, but the majority of it is water. And what we want to do is coat these all with oil. And if you're not able to flop them around like that, it's okay to use a wooden paddle. But we want to get those fried up. And it'll take a little while, but you'll see that eventually this will start steaming and all that water will come off of them. So what we're looking for is for these to start to get some browning to them, which you can see on a few of the pieces here. It's getting a little bit brown. That's perfect. Good enough. I'll take those off the heat. You can see the brownness. Let me see if I can get one of those out of there to show you. It's kind of a brown. You don't have to have all of them like that, just a few of them. Now we know the moisture's all gone and that bitter taste is gone. So I'll shut the heat off, set these aside, and we'll go to our next step. So the next step is bacon. Who doesn't love bacon? This is Applewood smoked bacon, and I have 1, 2, 3, and it's thick slice, and I have 4 slices. So if I had 3 cups of rice, add 1 more, that's 4 slices. If I'm going to do a larger batch, like 4 cups of, and when I say cups, it's the rice cooker measuring cup of rice. So if it's a 4-cup cook in the rice cooker, I'll use 5. But if it's 3, which ours is, in this case, I'm going to use 4. What we're going to do is now cut these into about 1/2-inch pieces. I don't have to take them apart. When I get this into the wok, they're going to fall apart as they start to melt. Okay, let's take those over to the wok. I use an electric wok, and specifically I use a Cuisinart. Now the reason, I don't even know if these are available anymore. I hope they are, because if this one ever stops working, I'll be stuck. But the Cuisinart is, of all the woks I've tested and tried, is the one that gets, for electric woks, it gets the hottest. We're never going to be able to get to the BTUs that a commercial kitchen gets, but for home, the Cuisinart is going to get about as hot as I can. Now, of course, you can use the gas stove top, which you'll get a little bit more BTU out of, but this is what I use, is the Cuisinart. This one here happens to be probably 20 years old. Okay, now we're going to just start the bacon out in the wok on medium high. We don't want it too high. It's basically, bacon has to be, you want to sweat it down. If you cook it on too high, the bacon itself will burn. So what we'll want to do is cook it on medium high, maybe even a little bit less than that. Actually, I'm going to turn this down a little bit from where it's at. And like I said, the clumps will as it heats up, the heat will just melt them apart into individual pieces. And of course, we're going to help that with a wooden, I don't know what you call it, a spatula. But what we're looking for is for this bacon to become brown. And crunchy for our fried rice. It's almost a need to continuously, like a stir fry, you're constantly moving it to keep it from burning on any one side. But you got to keep it at the bottom. That's where all the heat is at. think it's getting nice and brown. So what we'll do now is pull the cooked bacon up onto the sides of the wok. This is the beauty of a wok. You can take it off the heat, pull it up the sides. Just like this. Some of it wants to stay, some of it doesn't want to stay. But we now have the bottom exposed. I'm going to turn the heat up. And now we're going to add our scallions. And we want to let those fry a little bit, get all that flavor out of the scallions. I turned the heat up a little bit. Yep. So we're trying to get the flavor out of those scallions. This doesn't take very long at all. We do not want to burn these at all, and they are very easily burnt, and that ruins the flavor. But that oil from the bacon grease, it's getting flavored now with the scallions or the onions, the green onions. And before that gets too brown, we're going to add the bacon back. Mix them together. And once again, we're going to pull them up on the side as best we can. The scallions don't want to stick to the side as well as the bacon did, but we pull up to the side as much as we can. Because we're going to add our rice next. Okay, let me get the rice. I hope you can see this. I'm going to take the rice. And put that in the center. I'm going to get all of it. Now I'm going to get 2 of these bamboo paddles. I'm going to push the bacon and the scallions back down, and I'm going to mix them. This technique is important to the process because we're actually mixing all that bacon grease. Not a whole lot, really. It's relative to the amount of rice, but we're mixing the bacon, the scallions, and the rice in order to get a nice coverage. And this is why they call it fried rice, because we're actually frying the rice, and if it burns a little bit on the bottom, that's great, because that's where all the flavor from fried rice comes from, is the actual burnt rice, or slightly burnt, not significantly burnt, but slightly burnt rice that's at the bottom. Okay, our next step is to add soy sauce. If I can, I don't happen to have any for this recipe. I have regular Kikkoman, at the end of the day, always use Kikkoman soy sauce. And the way I do it is pour it over the top of a paddle, and then the paddle will drip. That way I'm not pouring it directly on top of the rice. How much? I mean, it's up to you. How much soy sauce do you want? You can always add more, but you can never take it out of there. So let's add that. And again, we're going to mix. Like I said, I prefer a light soy sauce, but I wasn't able to find that in the store today. So I'm just using regular Kikkoman soy sauce. Light soy sauce gives it more flavor. And I think that the reason is because I can add a lot more than of dark soy sauce. But at the end of the day, it tastes just as good. It's not as brown as I want it to be, so I'm going to add some more soy sauce. I'm going by color. I can feel it sticking a little bit to the bottom. I've got this on high, but that's good. Like I said, fried rice means just that, fried rice. You want to mix it until you get a nice consistent color across all the rice, which I think we have now. And then our next step, we're going to add the mushrooms. I want to get every last one of those wonderful mushrooms. They have so much flavor. I'm going to mix those mushrooms in with the rice and the scallions. I'm turning the heat down as we get ready for the next step, which will be to cook our egg, which we cook in the same skillet that we just did our mushrooms in, so we don't have to dirty up another skillet. Okay, let's get the eggs ready. While I'm at it, I can go ahead and grab that little piece of mushroom and eat it. And I set my temperature for that at medium, almost a little, just a little bit above medium. In this case, I'm going to use 3 eggs. If I had a larger batch, like 4 rice cooker cups, I would use maybe 4 eggs. But for this batch, I'm going to use 3 eggs. beat those up. Now my pan already has oil in it, but what I'm going to do, just to enhance this flavor a little bit more, is add a tab of butter to that. There we go. I'm going to add some butter. Let that butter melt. I want to get around the edges mostly because I want this to come out like a, sort of egg pancake, and I don't want it to stick. Okay, that butter's starting to shimmer. And if I pour it right in the middle, it'll push that butter right to the edges, which will help me from keeping it stick. I do not want scrambled eggs. I want a nice omelet sort of pancake style egg. So I'm just going to let that set like that. It's coming along. I want to make sure the edges aren't sticking. I think I can see that the center is sticking just a little bit. See if I can resolve that. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. You flip this whole thing over. That's pretty good. I'm going to shut the heat off. It's about as done as I really need it to be. Okay, before I put the egg on top, I'm going to take some black pepper. I don't need to add any salt because you get a lot of salt from the bacon. And if you want to salt your final dish, you can. But definitely you need pepper. See if I can get some more pepper out of that. Pepper really adds flavor to this. So I'm going to go ahead and stir that up one more time. I'll scrape the bottom. I want to get that flavor off of any burnt rice that's on the bottom because it's extra flavor. There we go. Okay, I'm ready to put the egg in. And what we'll do is just take that egg and lay it right on top like that. And then using a very sharp knife, what we'll do is we'll cut it into strips, just like this. It's a work of art, actually. Oops, get back here. And then I'm going to go crossways in order to make those little pieces. We're going to mix this all up so it doesn't matter that you get it like perfectly looking. But to me, it's something pleasing about doing it this style, by cutting it up into little pieces like this while it's sitting on top. There we go. And now I can mix that egg in. Don't worry that you have chunks. I mean, at the end of the day, those are kind of nice to eat with chopsticks. You want to get it as evenly. I'm going to chop it up just a little bit. It's a little too chunky. And then the final ingredient to make this awesome is roasted sesame seeds. You see this on the top of sushi all the time. So I'm going to sprinkle that all over the top. This adds another level of flavor. Be pretty generous, because what we're going to do is mix that in. It's not going to just be on the top. I shouldn't have said that's the final ingredient. The final ingredient is going to be our scallions, which are a garnish more than anything else. So we mix those sesame seeds in. And then the final garnish is our scallions. Makes it look nice. Beautiful. And there we have some nice looking fried rice.